Hello and welcome to the interview. I'm Kim Min-jung. The Winter Olympics that took place right here in Pyongchang last year has served as a turning point towards peace on the Korean Peninsula. How can the two Koreas move forward with the momentum? We'll get some insight from the former president of Poland and Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Mr. Lech Walesa, on this installment of the interview. Last year's Pyongchang Winter Olympics brought about a new period of easing tension on the Korean Peninsula with no fewer than 3 inter-Korean summits as well as the first ever U.S.-North Korea summit. The 2019 Pyongchang Peace Forun then continues on that Olympic spirit of making peace through sports with its wide-ranging agenda covering some of the world's most pressing issues, from the Korean Peninsula to disarmament, poverty, gender equality, and human rights. In attendance were a long list of leaders who promote peace in all corners of the globe, and among them we found the Nobel Peace Laureate and former President of Poland, Lech Walesa. He began his career as a worker in the city of Gdansk in Poland. He soon went on to lead Poland's labor movement of the 1970s and 80s, standing up against the communist regime with a free solidarity union. His work had a huge impact all across Poland and beyond. Such achievements were recognized with the Nobel Peace Prize in 1983, after which he went on to become the president of Poland in 1990. With the second U.S.-North Korea summit on the horizon, North Korean denuclearization and peace in the Korean Peninsula are once again at the top of the global agenda. The interview meets with Lech Walesa, the former president of Poland and a lifetime activist for peace and freedom, to hear his advice for peace. Welcome to the interview. It's such an honor to have you on our program. Now, you've come to Korea many times before. How does it feel this time? Has anything changed since the last time you were here?
About the city, it looks like the city's getting better and better. And here are seaside villages. They're so beautiful and the whole scenery is great. This is a remarkable development. And once Korea is united to give itself a larger territory, there'll be even more development. I've been watching Korea for more than 30 years, and it's a shame that we've not had much progress so far. But I can see why. Sometimes you have two sides with such widely different views that no agreement is possible. Korea seems to be that case. You see from the case of communism and other European situations, you cannot have progress without compromise, without negotiation. So you have to carefully study what your opposing side is thinking. And if they keep insisting on issues that you cannot compromise on, maybe sometimes it's better to move away from that issue and talk about different things. The most important goal is to achieve unification. So in a way, you need to address issues that can be addressed and move on forward.
So you're taking part in the Pyongchang Peace Forun as a special guest, and what is your speech about?
I gave a speech which had a similar message to the one I just gave. It looks like there's not enough support from the international community. That'll be very important going forward. Had I been fighting with Solidarność, or solidarity in the same way, maybe we would still have communism in Poland today. At the time, we worked very hard to earn the support of Europe. And if that wasn't enough, we tried to get the support of the whole international community. So I think that Korea must also do more. It's a very simple philosophy. If you can't bear all the burden yourself, share it with other nations. There was such great obstacles like communism and the Soviet Union. But we managed it. It was such a big burden. But we could bear it.
Panie i Panowie, Szanowni Państwo, jestem kolejny raz na tej ziemi. Pierwszy raz byłem około 30 lat temu. Nie wiem, czy ktoś pamięta tą moją wizytę i słowa, które wtedy powiedziałem. A powiedziałem tak. Zamierzam do Was przyjechać, kiedy na tych ziemiach zapanuje pokój i kiedy te podzielone narody będą jednością. 30 lat prawie temu. Zaprosiliście mnie jako noblistę i jako chyba przyjaciela. To wybaczcie mi, co teraz powiem. 30 lat czekam na ten dzień. Mam 75 lat. No i chyba się nie doczekam. Zastanawiam się, dlaczego. Taki piękny kraj, tacy wspaniali ludzie i nie mogą przebrnąć tej granicy. Pamiętacie, kiedy ja walczyłem Solidarnością? W moim kraju stało ponad 200 000 żołnierzy sowieckich. Naokoło Polski było ponad 1 000 000 żołnierzy sowieckich. I silosy z bronią nuklearną naokoło w ziemi zakopane. Europa pokłócona. 2 wojny światowe z Europy wyszły. A ile rewolucji, morze krwi. I patrzcie, nikt nie wierząc, wtedy w tamte doprowadziliśmy do pokoju, zjednoczenia Niemiec i jednoczącej się całej Europy. No przecież tam było gorzej. Gdzie tkwi błąd? Chyba wiem. Otóż idąc w tą stronę, dążąc do tego, najpierw rozpoznaliśmy przeciwnika. Zobaczyliśmy, jakie tematy nie da się załatwić. A jak się nie da załatwić, to porozumienia nie będzie. Więc w prosty sposób te tematy, które rozpoznaliśmy, że się nie da przeskoczyć, nie da się dzisiaj przeskoczyć, odłożyliśmy. Nie zwracaliśmy uwagi, bo celem naszym było pokój i usunięcie barier. I tu wydaje mi się, że to jest to. Pewne tematy dzisiaj jedna i druga strona się upiera. A nie myślę, że jutro one nie będą w ogóle ważne. Że z innej strony będą usunięte. Nie chciałbym was pouczać. Nie chciałbym wymądrzać się. Ale jako przyjaciel tego narodu naprawdę chciałbym doczekać, by tu jeszcze raz do was przyjechać i cieszyć się z pokoju i zjednoczenia. I ja w to wierzę. Ja też wierzę, że to inne narody powinny was wesprzeć. Za mało inne narody robią w tym kierunku. Ja też tamtej walki nie wygrałbym Polską. Bo co to była Solidarność? Prosta filozofia. Nie możesz podnieść ciężaru, to poproś, abyś go podniósł. Ciężarem moim wtedy był Związek Sowiecki i komunizm. Zorganizowałem cały naród polski. Za mało. Doprosiłem Europę. Za mało. Doprosiłem świat. Wystarczyło. Usunęliśmy tą walką i tym zwycięstwem. Usunęliśmy wielkie podziały świata na 2 bloki, na granice między państwami nieprzepuszczalne właściwie zamknęła się epoka podziałów z końcem XX wieku. Otworzyła się epoka intelektu, informacji i globalizacji. Wydawało mi się wtedy, że już będzie pokój, spokój i dobrobyt. Okazało się, że pojawiły się nowe tematy, z którymi sobie i dziś nie radzimy. Stąd takie spotkania, jak wy zrobiliście, są potrzebne i dla Europy, i dla świata. Bo powinniśmy zauważyć, jakie problemy stanęły przed tą nową tysiąclatką trzecią, a one są wielkie. W tamtym układzie każde państwo, każdy kraj miał swoje rozwiązania, swoje wychowanie, a nawet religię, wiarę swoją. I kiedy technologia zmusza nas do powiększania struktur, bo tamte są za małe państewka i kraje do tej technologii, to musimy zauważyć, że to wymaga, ta koncepcja wymaga, byśmy znaleźli wspólny fundament budowania. Każde państwo ma swój fundament. Nie da się budować. Jak znajdziemy wspólny fundament budowania, to nie jest trudne i nie jest wielkie. To musimy wydyskutować. To wtedy będzie pytanie, to pod tą wielką budowę jedności europejskiej, jutro globalizacji, jaki system ekonomiczny zdałby egzamin? Na pewno nie komunizm, bo w żadnym kraju na całym świecie on się nie sprawdził. Ale też nie taki kapitalizm, bo on też się nie sprawdza. Jak były dwa systemy, to one się kontrolowały, one się dyscyplinowały. A dzisiaj widać, że musimy nanieść poprawki. Oczywiście problemem jest demagogia i populizm w tym większym wykonaniu ponadkrajowym. I takie spotkania mogą pomóc nam znaleźć wspólnie rozwiązania. Jedna epoka w Europie to widać. Epoka podziałów upadła. Pojawiła się epoka intelektu, informacji, globalizacji, ale ona jest bez oprogramowania. Nasze pokolenie znalazło się pośrodku. Jedno padło, drugie nie powstało. Te pośrodku ja jako rewolucjonista nazwałem epoka słowa. Najpierw było słowo, a słowo ciałem się jutro stanie. Ale te słowo musimy wydyskutować. Musimy się nawzajem przekonać. Musimy uwierzyć. Musimy zawierzyć. Takie spotkania temu służą i dziękuję, że mnie na spotkanie zaprosiliście. Zapraszam się sam na zwycięstwo jedności i pokoju, co mimo moich lat wierzę, że kiedyś nastąpi.
30 years on since the 1988 Seoul Summer Olympics, the 2018 Pyongchang Winter Olympics and Paralympics were much anticipated as the country's first ever Winter Olympic Games. In particular, North Korea's last-minute decision to take part took the Games to yet another level of success as a sporting initiative for peace. 1 year on since the Olympic cauldron saw the last of its flame, Pyeongchang is yet again buzzing with excitement as local citizens and visitors are gearing up to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Olympic Games. Unfortunately, there was no North Korean delegation this time around, but a diverse program of events sparked up Gangwon-do province once again with the theme, Again Pyeongchang. The highlight was the Pyongchang Peace Forun.
A gathering like this forum is incredibly important because it gathers experts from civil society, from academia, from government across the region. And the way that they can inform the policymakers are very important. I know for sure that politicians listen to what comes out of dialogues and discussions like this.
The Nobel laureate and the former president of Poland, Lech Walesa, was one of over 500 delegates from more than 200 organizations and 50 nations all around the world who convened in Pyeongchang for a 3-day conference. Delegates came out in support of the Korean Peninsula peace process and jointly adopted the 2019 Pyongchang Peace Declaration to call for world peace, including the end of the Korean War. The Pyongchang Winter Olympics did much to plant the seed of peace on the Korean Peninsula. The world is now watching just how that seed will grow and flower into an enduring peace in the region. The Pyongchang Winter Olympics was a huge turning point in inter-Korean relations, and many cross-border exchanges have been taking place since the Olympics, including the summit between South and North Korea. Now, how do you assess the recent developments?
I think that's the correct way for achieving peace. In a way, you're walking on your feet while other countries are driving away. You have to move faster to achieve unification and peace. And the reason I urge you is because I'm already 75. And I fear that I may be gone before you achieve your unification. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my worry.
Do you believe that these rapprochement efforts and economic support can and will change North Korea eventually?
In the past, I had my battle with communism. When you're talking to countries with that kind of regime, I think it's important to show a better way, a better regime. Of course, you need to be careful so as not to offend them. But you need to keep showing them that there's a way to live better, to have a better future. So I think economic collaboration does have its role.
Much work remains to be done, but my relationship with Kim Jong-un is a good one. Chairman Kim and I will meet again on February 27th and 28th in Vietnam.
The second summit between Pyongyang and Washington is slated to take place in late February. It's somewhere in Vietnam now. What can we expect this time around, and what, in your opinion, would be the biggest achievement for both sides?
I hope that we'll be able to address things little by little that we couldn't resolve in the past. My advice to President Donald Trump would be to begin with little things. It's difficult to achieve big things, but you can be effective with small things. In my experience, when I met with President George Bush in Poland, all I wanted to get out of that was for the American president to mention one word: Solidarność. It was a very difficult conversation, but in the end I managed him to say that word. I didn't want to address grand things like denuclearization or peace. Just a mention of one word, Solidarność, in a public address from the President of the United States. That was difficult enough. The communist world hated that word, so it was difficult for the U.S. President to say that word.
So in this scenario, if North Korea wanted Mr. Trump to say one word, take a small step, what would that be?
With Poland, it was Solidarność. For Korea, it should be the Korean people who decide what's important. But that word may well start the next stage, so it should be chosen carefully. I don't know which word it should be. It should be for the Korean people to decide. It may seem trivial now, but at the time, getting that word mentioned was such an important thing.
What role do you think the South Korean government needs to play in mediating the talks between Washington and Pyongyang?
Showing the Korean miracle should be enough. I believe that the Korean people are very diligent. And that's how they've achieved so much. Showing that should be enough. And you need greater consensus.
Now, China, Japan, and Russia all want to flex their diplomatic muscles as well in the latest developments. What do you think is what each country wants, and how will this influence the developments from this point onwards?
I may sound very negative because I just don't believe in socialism or communism. In fact, what other countries think about peace in the Korean Peninsula may not be all that important. What's much more important is what Korea wants out of this peace. For now, given the circumstances, don't try to get so much out of it. Start with little things. And if you need help from other countries, you need to think about which country can be more helpful with resolving little issues.
In your opinion, which country would be most willing to help in the peace process at this point?
The United States will be the greatest help. Russia can also help as well. Countries with big power will also be big help. But it's not all just about power. There are countries with wisdom, and it's important to get their help too.
It appears to be that North Korea is gearing towards reform and change. Do you think one day that North Korea will turn away from socialism and communism and embrace democracy and capitalism in some form or another?
Modern society is very well organized. Everything is measured. So there are liberty and many other values. Countries that don't have these values will be left out. Now, with technological advancement, you can't just push everything by force. So South Korea should achieve unification fast. How you will do it has much to do with time and finance. You see, people want to be with a rich and smart person. With our technological progress, it would seem inevitable that we will continue in the same direction. Having said that, the unfortunate past will make it difficult to achieve that fast. Faults of the past are holding you back from going forward into the future.
You've witnessed the regime change in North Korea from Kim Il-sung to Kim Jong-il, now to Kim Jong-un. How do you think Kim Jong-un's regime is different from that of his father and his grandfathers?
With technology developing all the time and the situation also improving, things will get better. Kim Jong-il was a hero of his time. Now, Kim Jong-un is probably looking for ways to become a hero of his own time.
As someone who's changed the future, the country, Poland, for the better under your leadership, what advice do you have for Kim Jong-un in changing his country?
It's difficult for me to intervene in matters of other countries. The 21st century is bound to be heading towards freedom. So you shouldn't go against that current. Instead, you should move forward with it. And we must change a lot of things for that to happen.
How do you envision peace, sustainable peace on the Korean Peninsula?
Wherever you are, looking at the global situation, you'll see that dialogue is important for resolving issues. So we must talk, whatever the topic might be. The past is the past, and we have an age of peace ahead of us. But we have yet to decide on what values we need or what dialogue we should have. Particular issues for discussion can be determined as we have that dialogue. So it's important to begin that conversation and make an opportunity to decide on those issues. And we must continue with forums like this to sustain that dialogue. At forums like this, we shouldn't talk politics, but rather detailed action plans and how to address those issues. North Korea has their system, and we have a different system here. The North Korean economy is very different to the South Korean economic system. So for the two to cooperate, they must begin talking to each other to discuss where and how to begin that dialogue. And you can begin that dialogue by showing them the success of the South Korean economic system. To change North Korea's political regime, you need to show them what's good about South Korea's political regime. To show to the people that if they're making $1 now, they can earn $2 by collaborating with us. That's how they'll keep cooperating with us. This is just an example, but it's important to keep showing examples of how things can be. So we should continue to present good things and good ideas from South Korea to North Korea to tell them that our way works.
Immigration is such a hot topic around the world these days, including Europe, the US, and Korea is no exception. Jeju Island struggled with Yemenis immigrants these days. Now, what do you think is the core issue at heart?
In a way, we're facing a problem that was all expected. We show them on TV a better place to live. Then people go to that place. That can only be expected. What we need now is an economic system that the world can accept. If we can produce something good, other countries can do the same. So if you can do something here, other people can do it too. In fact, we need to analyze people with computers so we can tell what one must do to stay working in one's region. We need a computer program for that. And South Korea's issues with immigrants now will tell how Korea should respond when you get many more immigrants in the future from India or China. And that's inevitable, so you need to prepare in advance. That's an unavoidable trend in the age of globalization. You just need to prepare yourself. And again, to that end, unification could not come sooner. To accept those immigrants, you need to be a bigger country. And if a united Korea can achieve further progress, the whole world may have to share the burden. That's why we need to find a solution now.
Poland recently, along with Hungary, the Czech Republic, and a host of other nations, has rejected the UN Global Pact for Migration. Now, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm in fact opposed to this decision. Not everything that happens around the world goes in the right direction. The election of President Trump, the situation in France, the electoral campaigns in Poland, all these political situations tell that people want some change. All those changes I've mentioned came about because those politicians told people that they would make some change. They're right, and that change is important and necessary. But the problem is that they don't have the right solutions. If they don't address the issue, the society will get even angrier, and things will become even more difficult. And the world will become an even more confused place. So it's important to help Korea achieve its unification soon. It's important to talk together to see how we can be faster in finding solutions to problems in the world, not just about Korea, but about the whole world. We need to discuss and find solutions.
Last month, the mayor of the Polish city of Gdansk was stabbed to death in front of a large crowd. I'm sure you were very shaken by this because Gdansk is where you worked as an electrician in the shipyard as well. What went through your mind when you heard this bit of news?
It was a huge shock because he was a great friend of mine. There was one difference between him and me. I think that it's good enough to work for a certain period of time that you get. He thought that it was okay to work for all of this life. In fact, I'd advised him to go for a presidential election because I thought that if he remained a mayor, there could be unnecessary relationships building. And he's been staying in one place for too long. Sometimes the political situation in Poland seems impossible to solve. People agonize and worry about how to resolve the situation, and they just fall into chaos. And that's the same in Poland as it is elsewhere. The weaker the people are, the unhappier they can become.
Anti-globalism seems to be the operative word around the world these days. How do you propose that we tackle people's rising resentments and fuming sentiments?
It's difficult to say whether globalization is a good or a bad thing. It depends on what we want from it, and if we can get greater integrity and solidarity through globalization. It's a good regime. Globalization is something we should protect. If it's a good thing, it will naturally go in that direction, and we must aid it. In a way, IT has benefited from globalization. You can now connect with the world with your mobile phone. The same with satellite TVs and the internet. Perhaps what we need is a system of control, a control tower which manages how globalization unfolds. And with these anti-global sentiments, they come to one country, do demonstrations, and then run away to their own countries. Then they get their mobile phones out to tell the whole world about what clever things they've been up to. But if they really wanted to fight globalism, they should be doing that with pigeons, not mobile phones. They should be off the internet as well. Aeroplanes, mobile phones. These are all instruments of globalization. And can they really be against it all? Organizations like the EU are debating how we can move forward. They can't possibly be against all that. There are issues which you cannot solve alone. In a way, that's just giving way to populism, and it's a shame. They're doing and saying things that just don't make sense. All political parties should publicize what they are doing through smartphones and the media to show just how wrong those anti-globalists are. We need to tell people what the government does and what political parties do. And for that, parties should do two critical things. One, they need to write down 10 rules that the members of their party should follow. They should be very easy and transparent rules. Then, you have to make it very clear that their members have 10 responsibilities. If the EU or other organizations had these rules, laws, and responsibilities clearly laid out, perhaps Poland could not have joined them when it did. But it is important to have all of these in order. Easy to understand, transparent rules.
Youth unemployment is another issue plaguing many nations. How do you propose we tackle that issue?
I'm a revolutionary, so I've been to many demonstrations and protests. All around the world, you find two common things about protests. First is, we don't want this kind of democracy. And the second is, we don't want this kind of capitalism. And those protest leaders are often highly intellectual people. So they have people shouting, "We want jobs." And with that, they go to capitalists to explain what protesters want. Then capitalists say, "We don't have jobs for you." Then those leaders come back and say, "Those capitalists say they don't have jobs for us." Then the protesters say, "Don't talk to fools like them." The thing is, there are no jobs under the old system. In the past, it was about competing to get ahead of each other. And under that system, you couldn't think about those without jobs. But now that sort of race has come to an end. We need to look out for those left behind. Maybe this isn't the case in South Korea, but when you visit European countries, and certainly Poland, you have a red light every 10 meters. We need to rebuild those cities. Even just fixing all those traffic lights will be a huge work. And think about rebuilding all Europe and Asia. We have such bad traffic conditions and all those other issues. Just manning all those building works would go a long way to address the job problem. With more people having jobs, we can give them better pensions. And building cities will bring real benefit to people. If we have a population twice the size of what we have now, then we can do even more rebuilding in 100 years. Capitalists keep saying that they don't have the money. But those protesters say that the capitalists, who are 10%, have more money than the remaining 90%. That's frozen capital. We need to make use of it. And the second point about protests. I think that only half of the ownership of factories should go to owners. The rest should be distributed to those working at those factories. If we can make use of that frozen capital, this issue will also benefit. The government should cooperate to resolve this issue. So we need to tell our politicians to sort this out. And it's important that we get capitalists to solve the unemployment issue because they know best when it comes to jobs and how to use money. And they are the ones with money. We need to utilize our capital to make even greater profits. Politicians will need to cooperate more to find solutions.
Poland and the German government have had to settle wartime compensation issues, and Korea and Japan are struggling with the same issue of compensating for wartime atrocities, including forced labor and sexual slavery. How do you propose we do that?
The Second World War caused tremendous damage. But we can't solve the problems of today with the methods of the past. Yes, we do see that perpetrators are better off than countries that suffered. So you might as well say, we don't want reparations. We want to find solutions which will benefit both you and me. So propose joint enterprise, which will allow us to achieve what our ancestors couldn't. I did talk to the German Chancellor. Everyone was happy and applauding, but the Chancellor didn't like it. At one point he said, "You've raised many good points. But there are similar issues, not just in Poland, but also in Hungary, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia." So I said, "No, that's not what I want to talk about. I'm not asking for help so that we can build an alliance and start another war. That's all in the past and not what we want. What we want instead is you giving us €100 to our left hand. And if you do so wisely, then you're getting €500 from our right hand. So think carefully about what you're giving me. If you don't give, I can't shift all those unemployed people. But if I make a profit, I can pay tax to Europe and the Polish people will be able to buy great cars from Germany." We're entering a new age, a more globalized world with an intellectual leadership. So it's a completely different age. We should move away from shooting each other down and taking things from each other. Germany was unified and borders disappeared across Europe. I want the same to happen in Korea soon. If not, there will be great suffering. To think about just how much more we could have gained if unification had come sooner. Unification must happen for the whole world to reap the benefit together.
You were once an electrician at a shipyard, just going about your business, and then you turned into this icon within a few years of labor movement and also anti-communism movement as well. What turned you into a fighter for these ideals?
At the time, Poland was under a communist regime, so things were difficult. But we kept protesting, longing for freedom. We had discussions, and children were aware of the situation too. They all thought from childhood that they should regain Poland. We waited, and we finally got our freedom back.
Lech Walesa is a figure of legends in the tale of democratization in Poland and in Europe. His story began in a Polish port city of Gdansk. During the 1960s and 70s, when he worked at a shipyard, Poland was under a communist regime whose treatment of workers was grossly unfair. When workers rose in protest to go on a massive strike in 1980, Walesa led the formation of Solidarność, the Solidarity Union. It was the first ever trade union in a European communist country that was free from state control. Walesa was at the very forefront of this new movement, which saw him persecuted and even imprisoned in 1981. His work was recognized with a Nobel Peace Prize in 1983, but it still took a few more years until the people of Poland regained their freedom. After his democratic election to the office of president in 1990, Walesa worked to reorganize the country and bring in much-needed reform. Your life has been documented in a 2-hour film titled Man of Hope. Looking back the 70-some years of your life, what are some of the most overriding feelings that you have?
A lot of incredible things have happened. I've never thought that I'd be able to play this role. I was just a worker, but it was a call from the heavens. I received a good education, so I could play this part in wanting to change Poland's situation. When I was little, I didn't know what kind of life I would lead. And to be honest, I'm not all that fond of the life I've led.
I'm sure you've had your share of hurdles and obstacles along the way. What do you tell yourself to get up and just keep going?
I'm a devout Catholic. In my religion, we believe that you go to hell if you do bad things. And that hell is a very difficult place to be. If I ended up in hell, maybe I'll have to face villains like Lenin or Stalin, so I try and stay on the good path. That's why I kept fighting communism. And I'll keep working so that I don't end up in hell. I've done that so far, and I will keep doing the same.
Now, you won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1983, and soon after, in 1990, you won the presidency. Now, what are some of your greatest personal and political achievements looking back?
I think that the most important part I played was giving freedom back to Poland and to the world. It's a great honor for me that Poland and other countries can enjoy this victory. And that's my greatest achievement. We see from the experience of other countries that this is not easily done. So I'm working wherever I can be of assistance. I came to Korea 30 years ago and have since kept saying that I want Korea to regain that freedom. 30 years on now, I'm back, but unification is yet to happen. It's a real shame, and I worry whether I'll be able to see it in my lifetime. It makes me think what I can do to help.
Now, you've assumed many leadership roles, including the presidency. What do you think makes a good leader?
This question must take into account the time and place of the situation. During my days, Courage and trust were the most important values. There were other important values too, but those two were the most important. Now we live in a different age, so other values may be more important. But it's still important to know what you want, to believe in what you want to do, and to believe that you can do it. It's important not to look back into the past and to keep moving forward.
Now, you worked for peace all your life, and I'm sure it came with challenges in keeping peace at home. How did you manage being a husband and father of 8 children?
Home life is very peaceful, but I'm not the king in my home. My wife is. I have no political power in my house. My wife took it, and she's kept it ever since.
That's how you keep peace, I suppose. Now, one of your sons is a parliament member in the EU. Do you give him advice at all on how to govern?
My parents actually told me not to go into politics. But look, I don't give any advice to my son. I just let him live as he wishes, because I know he won't listen. So my children all live as they wish, and I don't get involved. Of course, sometimes I wish they would do things differently. In fact, my son had fought in the mayoral election, which returned the mayor, who was recently murdered. Had my son been in the office, he could have been the victim of the attack. You can't help wondering how it could have been. So we're grateful that he didn't win the election. But you lose when you lose an election. It's complicated.
Now, you also had a talk show, a fishing talk show, I believe. How was that experience?
I did host that show. I actually wanted to talk about other things too, but they wanted me to talk about fishing. You know, I've had to talk about things that I didn't want to, and I wasn't expecting much out of talking about fishing. But apparently the broadcasting station loved fishing.
Now, your mustache has become a symbol of sorts, and I read somewhere that you turned down an offer by a razor company to shave your mustache. What is your relationship with the mustache?
Oh, this just happened by chance. During my protesting days, I didn't have the time for shaving. Then it just became something of a symbol for me. Once it had that status, I couldn't shave it off even if I wanted to. Now I'm used to it, I guess.
What is your main goal in life? What do you feel most passionate about?
I'm not looking forward to much. I'm getting ready to go up to heaven. I think about how best I could go up there. I do come to events like this to give my views and talk to people, but that's not to any great end. But it looks like they're not quite yet ready for me up there. Things must be good up there, though, seeing as how no one has run away from it.
How do you want the world to remember you?
It doesn't matter, really. I know that those who opposed me will suddenly turn and say all the nice things about me when I'm gone. It's a shame I won't be able to give them a good kicking.
Lastly, Poland and Korea are celebrating their 30th anniversary of diplomatic ties this year. What words of wisdom do you have for these two countries?
Since I've been out of politics, I couldn't really give any advice. But I do hope that Poland and Korea will continue to improve our relations. I see here that Korea has such beautiful cities and those seaside houses which are so pretty. I want there to be a closer relationship between us so we can share great things like this.
It was great speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time today. Everyone wants peace, but the road to peace comes with many hurdles and obstacles. That's why we need mentors like Mr. Walesa, who we can turn to for the much-needed inspiration and strength. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week with another guest. Bye-bye.